I have spoken about this person in more presentations than I care to count. I count him as an incredibly dear friend, a brother, and we met probably 6 years ago randomly at an airport in London heading to Rome and have been incredible friends ever since. He's been invaluable to K&L Gates. He's one of the best people I know, and I know that you're going to find this podcast interesting. But just to set who this great person is, Bernard Hiller is an actor, an acting coach, an author, a life trainer. He was born in Argentina. He was raised in Germany and began his career in New York, where he went to New York and couldn't even speak English at the time. His career has spanned from Broadway musicals to film and television. He's worked with some of the biggest actors in the business, many of whom sing his praises all over the place. You can see it all over social media. He currently works with Lindsay Lohan. He's worked with Cameron Diaz, George Clooney, Anne Hathaway, Michelle Pfeiffer, and a list that I'd be spending 20 minutes if we kept talking about the A-listers and other incredible actors that he has helped launch their careers. As an acting coach, the list is so long, but what I think makes Bernie so special is that he can coach anybody. It doesn't have to be acting. And I understood this when I went to one of his sessions when we first got to know each other in Rome. We may get into that a little bit. He's written 2 books. I've read them both. His first book, Stop Acting, Start Living, has been translated into multiple languages. He speaks and performs all over the world. His most recent book, The Revolutionary Guide to Acting, A Transformational Journey to Achieving a Success in Show Business and Life, was just published in August of 2022. It's fabulous as well. And I think will speak to any of you. This isn't about being an actor necessarily. It's about taking the skills that Bernie has acquired throughout his whole life and his interesting path, which we'll get into, and helping people maximize who they are, being their best selves. So Bernie, thank you for doing this with me today. I know there are going to be thousands and thousands of people who are going to watch and love it. So it's great to have you.
It's great for me to be with. Anytime I spend a little time with Craig, it always enriches me. So I'm happy to be
here. Thank you. So I think your childhood path is so fascinating, and I think maybe explains a little. My wife, Dawn, who Bernie knows, is a huge fan as well and has gotten to know Bernie and called it magic. Like she said when we were talking about this podcast, try to get Bernie to explain the magic he has. And I think some of it comes from your early life. Talk a little bit about Argentina, Germany to New York, if you would, and your parents.
I was born when I was very young. I don't remember much. So that starts the first few years. No, I was born in Argentina, which I don't really remember that much. And I lived in Germany for a little period of time. But I really grew up in New York City. New York City is what made me become who I was. And I always wanted to be a performer. So I would give all the credit to all the training that I've taken, from singing to dancing to speaking to everything at all. And I was performing around the world and meeting some of the most interesting artistic people. My parents were Holocaust survivors. So that was sad because they didn't really have anybody. But on the other hand, we were all together. But I had a very strange childhood because my parents never told me I did anything wrong. So there we start from there. So when people actually thought something was wrong with me, I went, really? Like, it took me a while. It took me a while to say I'm sorry. I remember thinking that was like a big thing. Okay, I guess I did it. But in a way, that gave me an encouragement that I could do anything. And so anytime I wanted to pursue anything, they said, yeah, go for it. And I have achieved it because I believed I could. That's the key.
It's funny because I frequently get made fun of in my family for my dad used to call me the best boy in Dallas, which is a little embarrassing to talk about, but Dawn doesn't mind embarrassing me with it. And I had not known that about your parents. I kind of intuited it from our conversations about them, but they actually, after the war, moved to Argentina, as I understand it, and then repatriated to Germany as a part of a program that was trying to attract Jews back into Germany. Is that correct?
No, they were never in Germany. They were actually, because they were so poor, Germany was giving out money. They were giving money, and they were giving jobs, and they had it's a long, terrible story, but that's why they went there. They went there because
Okay.
they were given a job, they were giving some money, and then my mom said, "We can't live here anymore, not among these people." And
Okay.
we had to leave, and this was an opportunity, and we went to Argentina because that's the only relatives that survived a long time ago. So there was no place to go. At the end, they had no one was around. Everybody was gone, and so Argentina was the only place that said come. So we went, and that's where I was born.
So when you went to New York, I'm sure you spoke a bit of English, but
Very little.
English, yeah,
Yeah,
very little. And so you started in Yiddish theater, is that right?
I started doing musicals, but I remember my first word when I got off the boat in America. When I got off the boat in America, I thought this is going to be a monumental moment. I was going to remember that. We got off the boat and everybody was yelling, "Let's go, let's go, let's go." They were just yelling. I wasn't sure what "let's go" meant, but I yelled out, "Let's go." And that's what happened in New York. And I did shows. I did musicals. I did summer theater. I toured. I did a bunch of things. And then I did something called Yiddish theater, which is something that is in New York, because what happened with the Jewish people when they came over, they 80% spoke Yiddish, and they were instrumental in theater. They were very much in Yiddish theater, where it's all about theater, and so they would do like Romeo and Juliet, but they would put down Romeo and Juliet and they improved it because they made the Romeo and Juliet win at the end. Why should they die? They would change the ending because they thought, well, why shouldn't they live at the end? Because Jews liked happy ending in musicals, but they were very much into singing musicals. That's part of their culture, is performing and theater. And there's a Yiddish line which Jews only need two things: bread and theater. That's all they need, and that's why there's so many Jewish people that started Broadway. It's just something that people were attracted to. So yeah, so I did shows. I started doing this. I did some shows in Yiddish, which were still shows. They just were in Yiddish.
So, and you went, as I recall, in high school to the acting school that the movie Fame is about, right? That is a talk about the discipline that gave you. What would you say you carry from that experience to
Uh,
this day?
I didn't know anyone in show business. I didn't know any. I didn't ever met an actor. I didn't know where to go. I was like completely lost. And for the first time I went to the school, I met people who actually were working as actors, young actors, and that was exciting. And that pushed me actually to the dance department because I was thrown out of the drama department. I caused trouble because I thought this teacher was boring. And they said, "Okay, then you need to go." And I said, "Oh, no, no, I'm not leaving." So I went upstairs. That was the best thing that ever happened to me because they needed boys. They were desperate for boys. And I said, "Yeah, I'll dance." And I was the worst one. And the entire class was these incredible black dancers. But I mean, just the best. And I was the only white guy. They were the best dancers in the world, and I was the worst. And I remember, well, I could only go up because I could not get any worse. I mean, I was the worst of the worst. And I thought, I'm not giving up. And because of their encouragement, I became, a dancer because of them. Because I just thought, and I remember thinking, well, I'm not push me down. But I started late. I mean, it's a long, sad story. But but I'm so happy that that happened. So it shows that sometimes the worst things that happen actually turns out to be the best thing that happened.
And you certainly have kept that attitude. Uh, it's a wonderful one. Talk a little bit about, because you've taught me this, the concept that in performance, it's critical to get your body involved in the performance. Like what did dancing teach you? Even if you were acting in a play that had no dancing, what
Well,
did dancing?
the idea is that when I teach public speakers, the problem is we don't watch your words coming out of your mouth. What's more important, the message or the messenger? What do you think?
The
I'm asking you.
message. The
No,
message.
no. No, no. Because if you take someone you don't like, think of some person you don't like, anyone you don't like, and they said, we should keep water clean. Can't disagree with that line. But if you don't like that person, you don't really care what he says.
Mm,
Always the messenger. It's always the messenger. And that's where the problem is, because you're not, when you're speaking, and I know that you do a lot of speaking, but you're not giving us the answers to cancer.
right.
You're not giving us like, okay, whatever. No, I mean, the talks are based on communication, and verb communication is based 90% on your body language. Like right now, your body language is talking to the world right now to see if you're telling the truth. And you're doing that all your life. When your boss said, I'll give you a raise, you're looking and you came home to your wife and said, I think he said that, but I don't know if he means it. Why do you say you don't know if he means it? Well, because you looked at his body language. He didn't seem like he was there. See, language is a tool we use not to communicate. Language is a tool because people do not say what they really mean, but we look at the body. The body cannot lie. It is impossible for the body to lie. So we look at your body always. So the body is constantly speaking. So when I work with people, I have to connect them to their body, because we're looking at your body. You're looking at my body now. You're looking at people performing, and I just spoke to a couple thousand people. They're looking at who you are. Now, how long does it take before you make a decision on American Idol for someone to sing? How long does it take you? An hour, 2 hours, 2 seconds? Yeah, you're looking at a whole performance. The body is most important. And then the message, which is a whole different story, how to make the message, how to make it interesting. But it's your body. You cannot, if you don't have any passion and excitement, we look at the body, because the problem is it cannot lie. Like, it's telling the truth. When a body says you're tired, it's always true. When it's hungry, the body always tells you. But what happens is that people are disconnected from their bodies because their
Mm,
bodies is full of trauma, pain. So they disconnect from their body. They're in their heads. But the body has all the trauma. And when you hug somebody, you hug everything that's ever happened to them. A body is a barometer that everything everything that's happened to you is stored, expressed, and in your body. So whatever happened to you, when you hug somebody, you hug their whole life. Everything that's stored in you, and your body is the most important thing. And certainly, dance has taught me that. But if you want to be a dynamic speaker, we have to start with your body. Your body,
yeah.
your with the body.
I will never, as long as I live, forget. So I'm gonna give everybody the story from my perspective of how we met, so they get a little sense for what I'm about to say. And I've talked about this story in so many speeches I can't even count them. And I talk about it under the message of be open to having a conversation with strangers. I mean, literally, there's a picture of you in some of my presentations that say, talk to strangers. And I know it's one of your messages as well.
Yeah. Strangers are friends you haven't met. I
Right.
mean, the idea is that everybody's a stranger, but it depends how you come after them. If you come after a stranger like strange, you come off strange. I'm
Yeah.
saying talk. Every person you ever met were a stranger first, right? I mean, you met your wife, you didn't know her. I
Yeah.
mean, there isn't, everybody's a stranger, but the idea is that they're not strange if you know that they're just human beings like you. They want you, and I want exactly the same thing. Everyone
Yeah.
listening to me on this podcast, everyone listening to me on the world, we look different, we act different, but we want exactly the same thing. So that's what acting has taught you, is the fact that we are all alike. No matter what religion, no matter what country, from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe, everybody's exactly the same. And once you know that, then you talk to people in a friendly way.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well said. And it's the irony of quote unquote talking to strangers is that they're not. They're people that you should be curious about and their differences. But we meet, I'm in a big old brace. I have just landed in London. I'm exhausted because I'm 10 days post-op from an ACL reconstruction. The doctors told me not to fly. I do it anyway because I want to give the speech in Rome that I'm going to give. And I meet you and you say, hey, what'd you do to your leg? And I said, I tell you the story. You're like, oh, that's interesting. What do you do? And you started asking me questions about me. Then I turned it on to you. What do you do? I'm a coach. I coach actors. I coach other kinds of people. Hey, let's connect after we get off the plane. So I'm looking and I look up Bernard Hiller and I see, oh wow, he's really an actor. Like, you've got a list as long as my arm of movies and TV shows you've been in and musicals you performed in and people you've coached and testimonials from people you've changed their lives. And I'm like, oh my God, I would love to get to know this person more. So we get off the plane, we're waiting for our bags. You're waiting for your books to come off because that's a part of the class you're teaching. And I say, yeah, I would love to connect. Well, let's go to dinner tonight. I'm like, okay, praying at this point that you say 6 o'clock, 5 steps out my hotel door, which you don't say. You say, how about 10:30 at the best Italian restaurant in Rome, which is about an hour away from the hotel I'm staying in. I'm barely alive. I'm standing in line. You rock up with all the energy that you have. And you, of course, the owners, they're like family to you. They find us a table in the middle of this huge crowd and we become friends. So then you say, we have this great dinner. I'm amazed that I'm awake, but the conversation was so stimulating and wonderful. You say, why don't you come tomorrow to my acting class? Which I'm like, even though I've loved meeting you, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to do that, get back for my speech. It's all the complications. My brain is kicked in to protect me. And I said, okay, I got to do this. I'm going to show up for the first 20 or 30 minutes and I'll step out. And I stayed for every minute, as you know, of that day, of your 5-day acting class. And you started it. And this is the part back to what I'll never forget among many things. And you said, when you were a little kid, you just did what you wanted. You played, you loved, you had passion, and then something hurt you. And you started to use your brain to disconnect your heart from potential pain. I'll never forget that. But if you would, because that is not nearly as eloquent as you said it, talk a little bit about the premise that you start classes off with exactly what you said, the need to get out of your head.
Well, I think if you really want to learn about this, you need to pick up a book called Homecoming by John Bradshaw. It's the best book you will ever read. And I got a great book, but my God, this book is amazing. And it talks about the story that every one of us were born living in our heart as a kid. You followed your heart. You didn't follow your mind. You did this, you did that, you did that. And to summarize his book, but you need to read it, it talks about the fact that when you get traumatized as a child or when you get hurt, you travel into your head to protect yourself. But what you don't know is that the mind, the food of the mind is pain and suffering. It likes pain and suffering. And the objective of the mind is that it wants you to fail. That's kind of what it always wants. And the heart wants you to win and the mind wants you to fail. And I talk about different, this is according to the book, and I totally know it's true. And he talks about different things that the mind tells you to do to protect yourself. But it's all there in a negative way. Like people who are very controlling, people who have trouble asking for help, people who trust no one. But it's not about trust. They don't trust themselves. Because if you don't trust your instincts, it's not like you don't trust other people, but you're doing things. And most importantly, your mind will always answer every question in a negative way. Your mind is not capable of answering in a positive way. Not your mind, any mind. If you ask your mind right now, you ask this thing, if you said, hey, do I have talent or do I have skills or am I going to do well at my talk? The mind will always answer no. So when you're in connection with the mind is always going to tell you no. The heart will tell you the truth, but that's based on instincts. That's based on some feeling you can't understand. And the idea is that to be a great speaker or to have a great life, you have to be the most vulnerable person you know. But vulnerability is the key to all of success. So the mind is a trap. So here's a question. Are you using your mind or is your mind using you? And what happens is the fact that your mind should be your tool, not it's controlling you. I'm too much in my head. That'd be like this hand is doing things that I don't want it to. But if the police come, they don't cut off my arm and take it to prison. They'll take me to prison. They go like, I told my arm not to do that. It doesn't matter. The thing is that the mind comes from fear and comes from all different things. And it talks about 13 things that it does. The mind does as a way to make you fail. And you're very surprised about different things. You know when you're in your head, you have trouble expressing all your emotions. You care what other people think. Here's a one. I hope you don't have this one. Wanting to be perfect is one of the all-time classic, because wanting to be perfect is impossible, and so therefore you fail. That's why, sadly, we know a lot of successful, rich people who just decide to not be here anymore. And you're shocked. Why would they have done that? They have everything. Yeah, because their mind tells them you're no good, you're not really producing anything, and the world will be better without you. So the mind is not your friend. It can be used in a positive way, but your mind is not Google. So you cannot give me what you don't have. So I want you to speak Portuguese. Do you speak Portuguese?
No, sir.
No. So it's not stored, right? It's right. So it's not stored. But if you had it, you could give it to me. So you can't give me what you don't know. Your mind is not a Google where you go like, what should I do? If you have negative thoughts, you got negative thoughts coming out. But the mind is not your friend in general. And big decisions, love, passion, ideas come from your heart. Your mind should just figure out what steps to do next. But the mind is, you need to live in your heart. That's the secret. And if you want to be a great speaker, speak from the heart, you open their heart. Speak from the mind. Listen, if I was speaking through your mind doesn't like me from the moment go. It doesn't like two things that superstars and successful business people like. It doesn't like pressure, and it doesn't like anything to do with pain. And what I've come to do is I come to bring you pressure, and I'm going to make you painful in terms of growth. But the people I work with are people who want to grow, because if you want more muscle, it's going to hurt a little bit. And that's it. And those are the stars that I work with, business stars. They all know that it's time to stretch, and that's the only way you do that. And pressure makes a diamond. And if you want to become the person that you could be, you need someone who applies pressure. And my classes are called Love and Joy, because love and joy, when you apply that, you can succeed. And that's what my classes are about, love and joy. Yeah. But the brain is not your friend. And the book tells you about it. So Homecoming.
I love it. I love it. You've never recommended that one to me that I remember, and I'm gonna definitely get it and read it. And so you work with, as you say, you work with people who have succeeded at the highest levels, because I know it's not a one size fits all. Of course, you give classes, and there's a program for your classes. But how do you look at somebody that, like I've seen you do, and within minutes you can break them down like nobody I've ever seen, and really understand what their blockers are?
You have to understand that people come to me to try to get better. And it is some sort of a gift that I don't know where, but I can tell right away what's blocking them. And so we need to talk about that. And that's, it's something from the past. The idea is that I just did a big talk where I was helping people become the person they need to be to achieve what they want. There's too much focus on being great, following your dreams. I'm going, that's nice. Forget about that. Let's go backwards. I'm not big on motivation. Motivation gets you going for a week or two. But what I want to do is transformation. What kind of a person would you need to be the greatest speaker in the world? Let's go here. Like if you were going to be the strongest man, what would you have to look like? Now, remember, you're not going to win the strong man contest unless you have the muscles that, like unbelievable. And I think that's what it's about. It's like a part that you play. So we're talking about that's why people succeed, is because they come. If you want to achieve what you've never achieved, you've got to become the person you've never been. But people, and in business, which is kind of a crazy thing, but that's how it is. You are expected to speak. You're expected to make presentations. You're expected to do everything, but you're not capable of that because you're afraid of being looked at, judged, valued. I mean, it's you're not used to that, because if you don't love yourself, we don't love you. See, when you need to love yourself so we can love you. In fact, when you're uncomfortable, you make me uncomfortable. When you're happy, you make me happy. So it's really about the audience. It's about them. And so it really becomes a lot of different things, but we realized that we're all playing parts in our life. And you're playing an interviewer, and then you play a husband, then you're a father, then you're a driver, then you're the vice president, then you're a lover. These are all different roles. And what I help people do is find the role, learning what are the skills and things that you need to do to achieve those parts. And that's what I help people do.
Fabulous. Just fabulous. So have you mentors or people, you refer to books you've read and experiences you've had, and those are great mentors, but are there people that you point to, whether they were people you coached? I mean, you've met and are friends with some of the greatest actors on the planet. We were, my sister-in-law is in town with her kids, and I made them watch The Offer, which I love on Paramount, the making of The Godfather, basically. And then we watched Godfather 1 last night. Of course, you're friends with Pacino, and who I think is one of my favorites. Are there people like that you've touched, but they've also touched you? And
Oh, no.
if you, yeah.
Absolutely. The reason I teach is for me to learn. I'm not really teaching for you. The best. I mean, I keep a teacher knows everything, has a lot to learn. I do this for me. That's why I keep learning and studying and wanting to become the best for myself. When you meet Al Pacino, now all the great CEOs or actors, they all have coaches. Why? Why am I training somebody who's a great actor? Because they want to get this much better. I can't give that to you, because you know what you're doing is fine, and it's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. The people that I meet are people at the highest level who just go, can you make me this much better? That's what they want. This much better. I go, yeah, I think I could. And they go, okay, if you can't, good. If not, I'll go to somebody else. It's something that they want. It's not because they're bad. No, they're great. They want to get better. Al Pacino has been going to an acting teacher once a week, every week for 35 years. What, are you better than Al Pacino? Why? Because he wants to. Because most people, it's something that's not teachable. It's not something that you wake up. It's something that I have too. When I went to do my big talk for 1,000 people, I had my crew out there to see what could I do next time even better. And it was like the greatest thing. But is there anything else I could have done? And said, oh, okay, maybe I just want to do it. It's for me. I teach for myself. I teach, I learn. I have mentors. I have mentors who don't even know they're mentors. Mm-hmm. I see you are a mentor, the way you handle everyone, the way you speak, the calmness that you have, the ease that you go in. I catch that. I'll take that. It's like I take that. I take everything from everyone and from every person that I meet all the time. If you're spending time with DiCaprio, you take that. When you spend time with anyone, Samuel Jackson, you take that. Swarovski, I take from everybody. And that's what you should be doing, learning from the very best, people that are on the top of the top. One of the things that it's important which I've seen, is that if you hire somebody, Zuckerberg says something that's brilliant, only hire someone who you would work for. Someone that you would work for them. Yeah, I only have people that I would work for them. They're so smart. They're so on top of it. And in life, you don't attract who you want. You attract who you are. So when you are the greatest, you attract great. But if you're not, whatever you're attracting, that's something you're attracting because based on who you are. So I wanted to read everything. I read every book. I've studied with lots of teachers. I learned yesterday, today, I'm learning now. It's all just one big school that never ends.
It's a beautiful growth mindset. And I've watched it in action. I mean, there's still partners, very successful partners in our firm who have studied with you as a part of the K&L Gates program, who learn so much and are putting that into action. And they come back to you as a pillar for that. But I want you to talk a little bit about that, because some of the people clearly who will listen to this are not actors, and you made a transformation. You were an acting coach. You were in acting. So then you shifted and you've become one of the world's best professional coaches. You're not an acting coach. You're really a professional coach.
Right.
Talk about the difference between working with an actor and working with somebody in the business community, what were some of the things that you evolved in this growth mindset to be better at teaching the Swarovskis of the world versus the Pacinos of the world?
Well, you have to understand that there really isn't much difference. You understand that acting is a profession. But that's not what I'm teaching. I'm not teaching acting. I'm teaching you how to find your blocks, your fears, your confidence, being in your body, learning the art of communication. I'm teaching all these skills, which is something you need. If you're breathing, you need the skill. You need to be better communicator, better someone who can articulate yourself better, more in touch with your body. What? Human business people are people too. They also have fears and blocks and worries. And so the first thing I work on with people is I work on developing themselves, because if you become a dynamic, some people say, I want to be a dynamic speaker. I said, if you want to be a dynamic speaker, well, then I need to make you a dynamic person. I don't have tricks. A lot of places they teach tricks. Do this, point here, do that. One guy said, if you're afraid to look into people's eyes, look at their nose. I'm going, okay, whoa, wait. Why can't you look at people's eyes? Well, there is a reason. And so I go back. That's the same reason for the performer. The actor just does acting, okay? It's like I'm teaching someone French, but the rest of it is all the same. All the things that I talk about, you have to connect to your feelings. You have to be connected to your emotion. Emotional people are powerful. Logical people are not. You have to be passionate about what you're speaking about. You have to find the reason that you're even doing what you're doing. You have to find out how to tell a story in an interesting, powerful way. Most people, I have a friend of mine, he's a great teacher, one of the greatest, named Les Brown, said, you will never have power in your voice until you have the courage to tell of all the trauma that's happened to you. So people have voice blocks. So the thing is that I use all my skills to make a person in the business world dynamic. Well, don't you need dynamic? They're just dynamic. And then I talk about another part. The acting part is actually the easiest part. That's not the problem that people worry about. It's everything else, being on stage, being looked at, judged, valued, all that, how you fit into the world, here's the thing, how much you love yourself is how much you're willing to do for yourself. So I'm all about teaching you to love yourself, exactly who you are, and maybe become authentic. Authentic people are happy. Authentic people are connected to their emotions. Authentic people are positive. They're also vulnerable. And that's what you need in business. We want authentic people. And a lot of times in business, people have disconnected from themselves because sometimes they have sold themselves to a job that they seem to hate. And I'm saying you will never be great at something you hate. If you speak, which is what you have to do, you're only great if you love it. And you have to love to get up to speak. You have to love to get up to fail. You got to love to learn. You got to love the whole You know what? I want you to love your marriage, but here it is. I want you to love it like for half an hour every night or every day. Then what about the rest of it? That you're going to divorce. A half hour is not enough. I always say, until you love the life you have, you cannot have the life you want. These are things that I'm teaching everyone who comes, because if you have a pulse, this fits to everyone.
Oh, it does. I mean, the thing that I've seen you do is if people are willing, some people are just not willing to be vulnerable and oh well. But with people who are willing to examine in a vulnerable way who they are and their pain, I've seen you take the pain that person feels and turn it into their superpower. It's that you're sinking, to me, when somebody is not being vulnerable and authentic, they're not taking what they see in the mirror or what they feel when no one's watching and syncing it with their external persona. You are syncing up those two worlds into one. That's what I see, which gives people this enormous power in any capacity. So amen on that. So I'd love you to tell a story, because you've changed so many people's lives. And I want you to be a little immodest. But I know one person who said it publicly is Emilio. Talk a little bit about, for people who don't know who he is, tell that story, how you changed the path that his life is, that he tells
Well,
openly.
there's an actor named Emilio Rivera. Emilio Rivera is one of the most successful actors, probably. He's been on dozens of TV shows.
Sons of
He
Anarchy.
Plans of Anarchy. He's in tons of shows. He's worked with Jim Carrey, Tom Cruise. Who hasn't he worked with? The reason he will always be my favorite is that when I met him, he was a gang member. He was like a gang member, and he didn't really understand even life, how it worked, just the basics of life. He told me once that I said to him, what area do you belong? What area is yours? And he said, downtown LA, between 8th Street to 20th Street. We own that. That's our turf. And I said, what do you mean you own it? So what do you mean? It's ours. I said, so if the Japanese buy the land, where are you going? He thought that he actually owned it. No, he didn't know that you actually, and he told me, he went back to the gang, says, we don't own this. It's like a piece of garbage. People own certain neighborhoods. It's usually, they don't say we own Beverly Hills. It doesn't quite work
Right.
that way. But if they find oil in that land, you're out, because he didn't understand what to buy land, because they didn't have education, and they're gangs because they didn't have a family. And when I heard about his mother crying one day, he told me he heard her crying. He was turning 18, and the father says, I'm sure he'll be dead soon because he'll be shot by somebody. So they come from horrific backgrounds. And through a series of accidents, I started teaching him. For 2 years, I just talked about life. I talked about, like, okay, I got to retrain you to make you human in society. And since then, he's been one of the most successful actors of all time. And he came to my class like a few months ago, and he said, and he's so emotional. I get emotional when I talk about him. He said he either would be dead or in prison by now if he hadn't met someone. And that's just the power of a mentor. But he's a mentor now, too. Remember, everyone listening to me is a mentor. The question is, what are you teaching people? They're all watching you. I'm a mentor. You're a mentor, too. So what are you teaching? And he's been teaching people and helping, thousands upon thousands of people around. And they always call him, and he's like considered one of the ultimate people about all kinds of things. So we'll see. And that's basically it.
Yeah. It's not it. It isn't it. It doesn't begin to describe the impact, but it's the most immodest I'm going to get you to be about it, because I think what you have a fearlessness that not many have, to enter that situation and ask questions and get people to break their stuff down to a level that allows them to access it. It's a gift. So I want to
Yeah.
ask you to, yeah,
I created certain exercises that help people become who they need to be, because I think there's too much talking in seminars. You guys are talk too much. And I think around the world is everybody's talking. Stop talking. You
do
learn
it.
by doing. And so I do certain exercises with people to connect them to their vulnerability, to connect them with their power. Certain exercise that I've developed for stars, and I'm taking that and taking it to them, and it's like their mind explodes because they didn't know that would happen. Because if you're not vulnerable, if you're not there, then you're not really living. That's okay. You
Yeah.
can be there. You don't have to be vulnerable. No, but we're never going to watch you, and you're never going to be the greatest ever. But you will know that you weren't. A little later on, when you're in the nursing home, you'll know, you know what? I never was vulnerable. Yeah. You don't you either pay for your mistake now or you pay later. Life, not wanting to be vulnerable is the fact that we are vulnerable. This isn't like a choice. I mean, you're the greatest, Craig, but hopefully you're here tomorrow. I mean, we live in a vulnerable world. Saying I'm not going to let myself be vulnerable, I say I'm not going to breathe air. Okay, but you are vulnerable. And the successful ones go like, really? Let me be really vulnerable. Because to do a great presentation, to have a better marriage, to have a better relationship, to have a better life, you need to get out and speak. Vulnerability is the door that lets happiness in. And yes, you can have pain, but if you're afraid of having pain, then you'll have no life. If you want to avoid pain, just sit home and stare at the TV. Now, successful people understand that if you want more out of your life, you need to become more. The idea is that you're not going to get any more than you're getting right now. Neither am
Yeah.
I. If you want more, you need to become more. But people
Go
have
for it.
this feeling in the sitting, like I like to work out. Well, I like to work out 2 or 3 times a year, but then I found out that's not enough. You need to go more often. I realized that was wrong. But the idea is that I mean, I look at this perfect body and that's what it is. We're just sitting there going, I want that. Well, if you want that, there's certain things you need to do. And that's what I teach people. We're
Yeah.
not going to be looking, we're going to be doing. So if you really want to find out if you want to become the person that you could be, then you need to call me. And
Yeah.
remember, logical people don't achieve much. If
Yeah.
you're emotional and unlogical, then you will achieve greatness beyond your wildest measure. But that needs to come part of your life and why you're not taking chances. So I'm always about going backwards before I go forwards. I'm not about like rah rah, do all that. That's never going to work. It
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah. That is such gold, especially for the profession I'm in, the legal profession, where people have muscled their way through mentally to logic their way to write briefs and do this, that, or the other. And they've really missed the part that pulls in their whole self into the practice of law. And until you do that, no client's going to want to work with you. I mean, they might transactionally work with you because you're the best brief writer, or you do one little thing better than others, but they're not going to develop a trusted advisor relationship with you. So I've got a question for you, Bernie, and this is a little prurient from because you're in a world that most people listening to this have never accessed. When we watch Al Pacino, for example, let's pick a movie
Yeah.
that most people would have watched,
Yeah.
perform the scene in The Godfather where
Yeah.
he's literally transformed. You watch him go from. I was proud to read when I finally read The Godfather that Pacino's character Michael went to Dartmouth, and he's an Ivy League boy. He served the military, World War II, comes back, and he's in the middle of this gang war with his family, and he's kind of having to transform who he is. And you watch in the scene when he assassinates the police officer and the Turk. You watch him go into that bathroom and kind of rummage around for the gun he's supposed to get, and then build up. His face is twitching like it's the perfect. It's perfect. It's. I mean, you feel what he feels in that moment, like I'm going to have to shoot these guys in the head and walk out of here. And then the way he drops the gun, the whole thing's perfect. What are we mere mortals watching, and what is an example of how that can occur in other settings where there aren't hundreds of millions of people who watch that?
Okay, so let's start with number one.
Yeah.
Acting is choices that you make. You could have another actor coming in there, getting the gun, coming in, shooting everybody, walking out. That's one way to do it. The idea is that Al Pacino finds the most interesting way of doing something. And the reason it's interesting is because he is all about imperfection. He doesn't know where the gun is. He's never shot anybody. And when he becomes imperfect, that is why we're watching him. We're watching a guy like you. The idea is that imperfection is perfection. And the things you hate about yourself is your gift. So when you come off perfect, people are bored because people are lost and confused. So what I teach people is that we need to be like people, not like actors that know, like, what are you going to do? Let's say there was a big trauma right now. Would you know what to do? No. So he doesn't know what to do. That's why it's so interesting, because you realize that he's lost and confused, doesn't know what he's going to do. So you're watching someone lost and confused, and you don't know if I'm going to hug you right now or attack you. You don't know because he doesn't know. He lives in that world of how to make an interesting performance. And then one of my chapters that I teach is how do you give unforgettable performances? How do you give unforgettable speeches? I have one guy who's become so successful. I work with him in Vienna, and he has to go and speak about the money markets that companies have. They have a bunch of markets, money that they own. He has to invest them, and other people come in and speak. He goes, you know what? I'm going to throw away my speech. I'm not going to speak from anything I prepared. I'm going to tell you what I think from the heart, and he gets it every time because he's real. The other guys are very perfect and saying all the right things. And he goes like, you know what? I'm going to throw this away. And then they go like, wow, because you have to be ready to lose to win. And
Yeah.
that's what he's going to do. And he's always thinking, what's the best way of doing it? And let's trying it. And that's because there are ways to make unforgettable performances. There is
Yeah.
a way. And that's what he always chooses. And that's what the same thing Meryl Streep chooses. You could just remember, I could see another guy grabbing the gun, coming in, looking at everybody, bing, bing, walk out.
Right.
You're watching someone having a nervous breakdown. And we want to see someone vulnerable. We want to see someone lost and confused because that puts you in there. You were actually a guy taking the gun. He doesn't want to be a mafia guy. He just killed Dartmouth. He doesn't want to do that. They threw him, the story, of course, they were ready to fire him all the time because he was so low key and he was not there. And they were looking for like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm the guy.
You did the eyes. I hope people notice that you did the Pacino eye roll thing, the up in the air eye thing.
Oh no, yeah. But the idea is that because he loves the performance. Listen, you're going to talk today. You're going to make a speech, but how could you learn how to make it unforgettable? That's a technique. That's not something you get off the sky. He didn't do that by himself. Those are coaches. Those are teachers. And he goes like, yeah, that's a good idea. There's a way when I coach people thinking like, how would everybody do that? And let's not do it that way. Let's come up with a clever way. And because everybody's always acting with you. When you're acting with somebody, think of Silence of the Lambs. Take a look at that performance, okay? This is a guy who eats people, all right? So how would most people play that role? Just think about it. There's an actor. The guy's like it could be like a gorilla or a monkey, like he's like eating people like, I've seen, he's like, it's like no. How do you meet him? Classy, opera, very contained. And Clarice, the woman outside, she's in prison. He's not, he's fine. How are you? How are you doing? Like, so that's where the audience goes like, wow, because there's a way of doing something that we don't expect. And that's what he does. Great actors do things we don't expect. And we go, wow. And we live in the wow world right now. If your performance is not wow, you're not going to be in show business very long. Yeah. And so everybody's getting help. If you want to be the best, get help. Get help from the very best, not just somebody off the street. Get help from someone that you'd be like, wow, this person is impressive.
Yeah. What if somebody doesn't have access to somebody like you? They can't afford to get a coach. What are some beginning things you would be having them do or think about to access that vulnerability, to start to get comfortable without notes in a speech? Like give a few basic things before they graduate to talking to you.
I want to ask you a question. You have a company, right?
Yes.
When you first started the company, law firm, right? When you first started the law firm, did you guys have to buy desks?
We did.
And computers and lights and everything, right? Yeah. But you haven't even had one client, but you were Here's what it is. If you don't invest in yourself, there's no shortcut. If you don't have the funds, the means, the ideas, it's not going to go well. There's nothing you can just do on your own because there's only so much you can help yourself before you need professional help. Yes, I would recommend then, okay, if you want to just do something simple, take some singing lessons to help you unblock your voice, take some Zumba lesson that's free, do something like that. But if you want to be there, if you invest in yourself, other people will invest in you. And the vulnerability, here's the secret. One of the things about the mind is that you can only take yourself to a certain point. That's why you go see a doctor. Why don't you be your own doctor? No, the doctor looks at you. I went to the doctor the other day, says, oh, you got this thing wrong with you. And I didn't know that because he's a doctor. I can't, stop it. Why don't you just fix your own teeth? No, the idea is that what can someone do? What someone needs to do is to live a life. But if you want it to get better, start talking to 3 people every day that you don't know. Start liking human beings. Start connecting with people. You're in a people business. Life is a people business. Right now, it's a horrible time. People don't know how to communicate. They text. They do other things. People go, it's the worst time for relationships, love, according to the surveys, sex, nothing. People are just not having anything. like things are really sad because they're just texting. They have something called connective loneliness. We have connective loneliness behind the thing. We have friends. When I was younger, you didn't need likes, you needed love. And when I was younger, people needed to be leaders, not followers. How many followers do you have? And so we have a different situation. No, you have to do what actors do, which is they have 3 jobs and they get a coach. So there's no way to circumvent. Why don't you just fix your own teeth? You're right. You have no money. Well, your teeth's going to fall out. You have to make it work. Here's the thing. If you believe in your talent, you'll figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
You need to work with one of the best. And there's no way around it. There's no way
So,
around it.
so I've had the privilege of getting to see you outside of the workspace, so to speak. And you've seen my family, you've met my family, and my youngest suffers from a lot of anxiety, and typically going out to dinner with a stranger, a person you've never met before, would be horrific for Eli Budner. Yet you had Eli at a dinner laughing, hugging, in your lap, basically.
Right.
And the other thing I've observed, I haven't met Dora, but I know your son David, and I know what a fabulous father you are. So let's take this out of the realm of our professional context and talk about being a parent. And you've empowered David to go on a path that is kind of similar to yours in a way. It's in the entertainment world. What are some things you look back on and say you got right as a parent? Because I think you're as good of a dad as there is on the planet. So people
First
with
of all, my dad, I had never thought of myself as a dad because my dad was the ultimate dad.
Yeah.
I always thought he was the ultimate dad. There was nobody better than him. So I'm doing a good thing. But here's the thing. You have to encourage people to follow their passion, because their passion is not some stupid idea. Their passion is how they're going to make money. And I was able to make money and succeed and figure out this way. If you have a passion, you'll figure it out. If you do something you hate, it's going to kill your soul. There is a line which is, salary is a drug an employer gives you to forget about your dreams. And so there's all kinds of things that I want you to, even when you even find a job, find something that actually means something to you. And so one thing that I would say that I encourage them all is pursue and be the best at what you want, because you'll never be happy unless you're the best at what you want. Yeah. And he is loving it. But one of the things about loving it is that he's doing that now. If not, he'll do something else. It's a journey. Follow the journey. Whatever the instincts that you've been told, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And your job is to turn it into reality. No one has ever woken up and said, oh, I want to be an opera singer. No, they're an opera singer. That's who they are. And I'm saying that if with the right training, you'll figure out how to make a living doing that, because I believe that's the most important thing. That's why, by the way, the number one, I live in Beverly Hills, and there's enough plastic surgeons here to throw, you throw a stone, you hit 20 plastic surgeons. But you know who were the number one plastic surgeon customers were during COVID? Business people. Some of them lost their mind when they were looking at Zoom. They go, this is what I look like? This is what happened to me? The number one customers were business people.
Interesting.
Yes. It wasn't like some, housewives from New Jersey, whatever they're called, but it was like that. And the idea is that I think that your job in business can be great, but you need to find the joy in it. You got to find what you love about it. You have to find what you love. Otherwise, it's going to kill your soul. And so there are lots of people that I meet who are on the top of their game, who love their job. And that's what I'm trying to teach them, how to love their job even more, because you need guidance. There's no way around it. It's one of the things that successful people always ask for help. Average people never ask for anything. In fact, wait a second. When you learned to read, did someone teach you?
Yeah.
Did you learn math on your own?
No.
And when you asked the teacher, what's the capital of America? And they said, Washington, D.C. Did you trust her, or did you go like, wait, how do I know? Yeah. You wrote everything down. Did you learn to drive on your own? Did someone teach you? Did you?
Well, that's more complicated.
Yeah, but someone must have taught you something.
Yeah, yeah,
They had,
yeah.
yeah. No, I think that all the great things, and when you see, well, the greatest football player, I mean, football like soccer football, is a guy named Messi. Have you heard about
Yeah.
this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay. So he has a coach. I don't understand why. Doesn't he know which way to run? Well, why does he need a coach for? I mean, and people think of sports. Well, of course, there's a coach. Well, why? I don't understand. Why does the guy who just won Wimbledon for the eighth time say, today I'm taking off and tomorrow I'm working with the coach? Because they want to get better. And does he say, oh, I don't have money? You figure it out. Remember, when you have a passion, you figure it out. When you're logical, all you see is problems. I don't have this. I don't have that. I'm on TikTok. Why? I have no idea. I have 350,000 followers. Why? I don't know. I don't know why they're there. But they tell me I want to be an actor. I don't live in this right place. I live in the right place. I came to America. I had no money. I didn't speak English. I knew nobody, but I just thought that I could. And I figured I need to train and become that. And I didn't have money and I didn't have anything, but I figured it out, because if you have passion, you'll figure it out. And that's the most important thing. If it's a logical thing, you'll go like, all you see is like, I don't have that. I don't have this. No one has anything. That's the journey. That's our journey, to go from victim, from having nothing, to winner. That's the journey. Everybody starts off with nothing or doesn't have anybody. And look at you. You started. Look at where you're at. So it's part of the journey to live your journey. And one of the things is that, where were you before you were born? Do you know what that is? That's called like a mystery, right? That's a mystery. And what happens after you die? That's a mystery. And between birth and death, it's also a mystery. But if you slow that word down, it's my story. That's what mystery is. People don't want to live in mystery, they want to know. And I'm saying, you're going to miss all the great things in life. And so it's a lifestyle. It's something that people want. It's not something that I'm promoting or selling. No, this is just something that they would like. They want to see what's possible for me. How far can I go?
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I'm working with.
I've seen it. I've seen you. I mean, it could sound like all you do is work with A-listers. And I'm sure you could fill 10 days a week working with A-listers. But actually, where you derive the most pleasure, because I've seen it in action, is helping the 23-year-old Italian actor who is just trying to make their way into the industry in Italy.
Absolutely. And I'm also talking about young business people. I like to work with anyone who has a hunger,
Yeah.
who is hungry, because my ego's out of control. Because at this point, because I'm so busy, I don't work with anybody unless you convince me that you're going to do what I'm going to ask you to do. Because then, if you don't become successful, then why do I don't need your money. I don't need you to come.
Yeah.
I'm always like, your job is to convince me. I'm not convincing you. So make me feel like you are hungry and you're going to follow these instructions, and then you'll be successful. And I'll go, see, look what we did together. So
Yeah.
you need to be open enough to wanting to learn. See, learning is an act of love. If you don't love yourself, of course you're not going to want to learn. And anyone that rejects information is because they don't want to win. The question is, when are you going to stop resisting all the things that are stopping you? And when are you going to start existing in the person you actually could be?
Beautiful. That is I couldn't imagine ending this on a better note. I think what I would love to do is do our part 2 in person. Maybe right there in that beautiful home that you have. I want to thank you, because you have changed the trajectory of my life. You have changed the trajectory of people's lives that I care deeply about. My son, Will, who you've talked to, was probably influenced his career indirectly by you. He became a behavioral psychologist and is now getting into coaching, and can't wait to get back to the United States and come see you. So you've touched so many people's lives. Your fearlessness, your enthusiasm, your skills are unmatched. And I really appreciate you taking this hour today to talk to people who are listening. I know people will benefit, and some people it will literally save their lives, because your approach if someone will listen carefully, is one that will have someone reconnect with their sense of self. So you're a gift. I love you. You're a wonderful friend to my family. And I look forward to maybe doing more of these in the future.
Absolutely. This is the first of an 8-part series.
I love it.